Welcome to the Combot Collective.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to our fourth episode of Robot Combat tonight. We are moving briskly on with this brand new series, and this is the Combot Collective, bringing everything you want to know from the world of robot combat, from the heavyweight class to the flyweight class, from Battlebots to the live circuit. There's been a lot of live circuit buzz lately. We've talked about Robo games recently. We're going to be talking a ton about Robo Brawl. Our rundown video was recorded the same day as this was recorded, here today on the 21st of April. To all my friends that celebrate waking and baking like I do, shouts to you guys. Happy 420. To all of my Texans out there, happy Texas Independence Day. That's today, April 21st. It's a big day for being a Ranger fan, I'll tell you that. What City Connect jerseys are out today, so after I finish this recording, I'm going to be catching the game. But this ain't about baseball. This is about Battlebots. I feel like I've said that 2 weeks in a row now. But yes, great week for Robot Combat. We talked about a bunch of live events already over the past couple of weeks. Some more exciting ones coming up on the docket before we get to all this Battlebots. Very much a Battlebot-centric Robot Combat Tonight episode today. Only three big topics all centering around heavyweight action. Two of them mainly Battlebots. New Battlebots event, though, announced. That's pretty exciting. That's going to be our big opener. But, of course, some things to look out for before we really get started here. There's an event happening this weekend in Germany, or I should say, as we are recording this. By the time this is out, on the 22nd and 23rd, there will be events happening in Germany. So if you're watching this on YouTube, if the footage should already be out, check out the German event. I believe it's 1 pound and 3 pound action. We also have Normal Havoc happening May 6th. We're going to be live streaming that event. And next week on Robot Combat Tonight, we're going to start talking about robots that are entering Norwalk Havoc. And probably the following week after that, we'll start making predictions the day before the event actually goes down. But yes, that's pretty much all the live event developments we have for you guys today. Don't want to spill too much more on the Robo Brawl pot until we get there. I think we've covered enough on Robo Games. Of course, if you want to know anything about Robo Games, check out the last two Robot Combat Tonight episodes. But nope. This is the new one. It's the 21st of April episode. I'm guessing it's probably going to hit YouTube probably somewhere around the 24th to 26th. Knowing my luck. Hopefully more like the 24th, 23rd. But we'll see how it goes. Yeah, a lot of Battlebots stuff to talk about today. And we kick it off. By the way, I'm your host, as always, Sterling Brown. I guess I should mention that. But we kick it off today with a very... some interesting news, I have to say. Good news, though. This is something that Greg Munson was talking about on the Behind the Bots podcast all the way back in September, and even on some other shows like the Green Square Show and Outside the Box before that, or after that, I should say, is that he wanted to do qualifying events after Destruct A Thon. He wanted to do, a way for these robots that apply but can't fight. Give them a chance to fight. Give them a chance to prove themselves, and that's what we're officially going to start seeing here. It was broken by the Robotic Death Company Facebook page on their story of all places, not even like on a proper post, on their Facebook story. Here's the post right here. We're going to have it in our corner screen if you're watching it on YouTube, but reading it right here, the post itself. Have you ever wanted to fight Gigabyte? Now you can. Gigabyte will be at the Battlebots Proving Grounds from July 5th to 9th, and we need more robots to fight. Contact Greg Munson of Battlebots or Battlebots directly to get more details and arrange for the fights. Don't be afraid to contact us directly over social media for more information. So, honestly, I would not be surprised if we see a TCC News standalone video on this over the next couple of weeks or months heading into this big Proving Ground show. I know we want to get more details on it, more, idea of what's happening with the event, what to expect. But here's what we have right now. In terms of, what we've heard from Discord, Reddit, Facebook, and other various sources. Essentially, like I mentioned, it was broken on Robotic Death Company's Facebook on the 17th of April. And yes, pretty much after Battlebots Destruct A Thon finishes its first season events, which happened from February to May, where Battlebots will now be open for non-350 pound robots. Open action instead. Its first ever qualifier of event of sorts, I guess you could call it. Qualifier events. Battlebots Proving Ground. The post here which Gigabyte made, Robotic Death Company, implied that the event will be from July 5th to July 9th. But we've also heard from Team Danby and a person which attended the BattleBots event, Personizzle, that they've heard conflicting reports stating that maybe it's not just a half-week event. This is actually going to be happening from mid-May to the end of July. And I trust Craig Danby with sources like that. But yes, if you are working on a heavyweight or you're interested in building a heavyweight, you want to get into BattleBots and you don't think, applying on your own is going to be enough to get you in, well, I suggest you better start talking to Greg Munson and Trey Roski and the rest of the BattleBots team, because they're trying to figure out what newcomers are going to be brought in for World Championship 8, the 2023 BattleBots Championship season. And we know that there's going to be some very fun robots appearing at this competition. I mean, obviously, we know that Gigabyte's going to be there. We don't know if Cobalt's going to be there. You'd like to think that maybe they'd bring Cobalt, but Gigabyte's a team that certainly needs the reps. I mean, they missed out on Robo Games. We've been talking about that quite a bit over the past couple RCT episodes. But, for being such a young, inexperienced team, at least in heavyweight action, for Derek Tren and Camden, the captains of Gigabyte, this is going to be big. Take on some more inexperienced robots, pick up some easy wins. It's going to be good for them. And right now, it looks like Gigabyte's not the only robot confirmed for these events. In the Reddit post made by Twilight Foundry, it was also stated in the comments that the team behind Roundhouse, I should say Team Hot Pizza, the team behind Roundhouse, they tried applying with Hot Pizza last season. They are also announcing their intentions to compete at this event. Roundhouse, of course, we'll have the picture right here. Very intriguing robot, four-wheel drive, angular corner spinner. I don't know whatever you want to call that thing, but very much shades of a Hot Coin style design robot. If you know Hot Coin, the artist on Instagram, very popular in the community, makes some super abstract robot designs. This one here, no exception at all, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. Proving Ground is going to be an event built all around these brand new robots trying to strut their stuff, show off to BattleBots and, other robot competitions. Hey, this is a solid heavyweight. We want to compete. We want to be there. And now let me move on to this. Let's talk about robots, because that's sort of what we right now have for loose details on the events. Gigabyte's going to be there from July 5th to 9th. It's likely going to be a May to July event, so long span of days if you want to show up with a robot to fight. Talk to Greg Munson if you're interested in competing. I don't know if tickets are going to go out yet. I guess it's going to be something we're going to have to save for a video. But yes, let's talk about robots we'd like to see at Proving Ground. Like we already mentioned, Gigabyte is going to be there. Battlebots said, don't worry about Gigabyte being on the chopping block. That's not what this is about. Instead, they're pretty much bringing Gigabyte in just to test things out, try out the waters of this brand new Proving Ground qualifier style event. And it's probably for the better that they're bringing in Gigabyte. They should probably consider bringing in some other veteran teams that may not be in trouble exactly yet to help along. Maybe, like Team Malice, Team Jackpot, veteran presence to have. Something that the new teams would want to fight. Gigabyte, Malice, Jackpot. Gigabyte's a good start, though. Good for the RDC youth squad, like I mentioned. But here, let's talk about some brand new robots which have talked about applying to BattleBots 2023, or just intending to show up at these live events in the past. Who could we potentially see compete in the future? Well, we're going to start off here with a Roundhouse. We just mentioned Roundhouse from Team Hot Pizza. Very abstract, creative design. This was designed I was initially worried was going to be an April Fool's joke, since it was initially announced on April 1st. Looks like the team's pretty serious about it. Another thing I'd like to see, plenty of RoboGames robots. They're still fresh in our minds. Machines like Swamp Thing, of course, very much a BattleBots hopeful there with Rust Robotics. Hexadecimator, 3-2 off a hot run at RoboGames. Maybe it's the time to activate. Try to get into BattleBots one more time. We also have Emperor from Youngstown College in Ohio. Really didn't get a good shake of things at RoboGames despite being such a beautiful robot. Why not bring it to the battle box? Strut your stuff. See what you can do. Maybe this bird can fly. Have some wings on it. All those robots, really fun designs. I'd like to see them get a chance inside the battle box. Prove that maybe they're worthy for the 2023 season. Another robot we've discussed a little bit, though we don't really know what it's going to look like yet. Seems Reasonable Robotics is Clusterbot the twins. They talked about it recently at NHRL in March. Seems like a promising design. Seems fun. It's essentially going to be two 125-pound versions of Combot going in there trying to rip shit up. They've talked about maybe retiring Tantrum in exchange for having twins be the robot to fight for them at BattleBots seasons going on. I don't know if BattleBots is going to be happy about that. Obviously, they don't want to have another defending champion like Bite Force bow out. So if they want to do some convincing to BattleBots to say, hey, this robot's worthy to take Tantrum out, sub it in, you're probably going to have to show up at Destruct A Thon. Proving Grounds to show, hey, this robot's good. Let it in. I know it's not a puncher, but it's still a lot of fun. BattleBots does need a new Clusterbot. I don't think the new Clusterbot Ogre Kill is going to show up because it's international. Maybe we can see it compete at Extreme Robots. Personally, I want the new Clusterbot in BattleBots to be Crash and Burn or Hack and Slash as it's known under the BattleBots name. Don't think we're going to see that, though. I wonder if the ship has sailed on Hack and Slash. I really hope that's not the case. Speaking of teams that already have one robot in, though, Subatomic is another robot that we've seen recently applied to Battlebots 2023. Comes from BNS Robotics, the same team which has brought us Bloodsport. Got the stickers right here. And, of course, Retrograde in the past. I don't know if this is going to be captained by Aaron once again, or if this is going to be a new captain for BNS Robotics. But essentially, Subatomic's gimmick is it wants to be the smallest heavyweight in Battlebots' recent history. Wants to be a very, very, very compact drum bot. Has a very fun mini bot. But kind of like, Manta last year. It wasn't going to be getting in as its own, as just a basic standalone drum bot under the name Drago. It needed to build up some experience. It needed to build up some mileage. Well, look what Manta did now. Manta's one of these robots that doesn't need to show up at Proving Grounds because it's already proven the ground as which it's standing on. It won Robo Games a couple weeks back. Very impressive performance. Pretty much a lock for next season of Battlebots. But yeah, Subatomic, they kind of need to follow that route. Very Minotaur-esque, very Copperhead-esque. Just being a compact drum bot on your own, not going to get you in. But if it can rip some robots apart here, it's going to be very good. Speaking of Manta, we talked about this robot on our TCC social media pages about a week ago, I would say. Disarray, tell you what, it's apparently a very popular month in Arizona to build a Ray-themed heavyweight. Of course, we saw Manta win Robo Games a couple weeks back. Now we have Disarray, a Stingray version robot. Stingray-themed robot, or Manta Ray-themed robot, I should say, was originally named Sting, coming from the University of Arizona. And it looks like a solid robot. Very much, I've had people describe it to me as shades of If Part of My French and Hypershock Had a Kid. This is one of these teams that has been saying for quite a few months now, hey, we want to show up at the Battlebots live shows to prove our worth. Well, hey, here's your chance right here. Try not to lose those small wheels. It's a bit of a smaller robot, deceivingly smaller than most chunky vertical spinners. But hey, I think it's going to be a solid robot if it proves it's reliable. I'm a little worried about those little ray fins off to the side. Maybe they're ablative. Maybe they get ripped off easily. But talking about two more robots which have announced in the past great intention to show up at a Battlebots Destruct A Thon / Proving Grounds event. Even before the Proving Grounds was even announced, we have Pinch Point, a robot which I believe was originally competed back in the 2000s. This is a brand new version. It's a four-wheel drive horizontal spinner, kind of shades of Surgeon General and Disconstructor and some other horizontal spinners of the past. Not really a most modern cutting-edge design. It's a horizontal spinner, but it has a gimmick where it's two blades that are spinning inward on each other, so it's kind of like biting almost. I'm not very impressed with the design, but it's something unique. That's a team that has been trying to show up to Vegas for a show. And lastly, for a fun one, I believe from an anonymous source I had a while back, I heard that Junkyard Offspring, yes, that Junkyard Offspring from the classic seasons of Battlebots, the one that got destroyed by Nightmare, it's been trying to get back at a Battlebots event, a Battlebots Live Vegas event as a Viking burial of sorts. Obviously, I'm not saying expect Junkyard Offspring in the next season of Battlebots. But that's a rumor I heard from the team behind Junkyard Offspring, trying to bring that robot in for a fun goodbye of sorts. Maybe you could fight Nightmare again, go full circle. Maybe I've heard that Trey Roski was receptive to that idea. I guess we'll have to see what happens. There's a lot of things that will be fun in Robot Combat that just don't end up happening, unfortunately. But that's it for robots that are brand new, robots that haven't been inside a battle box for quite some time in the case of Junkyard Offspring. Robots that have not appeared in the reboot that we will maybe see this season. Robots that could really use the benefit of Battlebots Proving Ground to, take those extra couple of steps forwards to get themselves into the next season of Battlebots. And I mean, a lot of new robots. Outside of Terratops and Manta, of course, if you're a new robot, you probably need to show up the Proving Ground to, prove yourself. Prove that you're worth being, a machine for Battlebots. Prove you're reliable. But that's just for robots that we haven't seen. I got 6 robots here I want to list off that have been in the most recent season of Battlebots that might want to take what Gigabyte is doing and follow that kind of lead because things ain't been too hot for them. And we start off with a robot which, quite frankly, 6 robots, 5 robots. A robot that definitely needs some reps. Gruff, coming from Ram Robotics. Now, I know that it's a long trek going from Florida to Vegas for what is essentially a practice event, but I mean, Gruff, it has entered this event with the reputation of being the brand new tank of the heavyweight class, but with every single fight, it loses by knockout, and it's been a bunch lately. That title vanishes more and more with every single fight. The team always seems to do better at non-televised events, so maybe that would be a bit of a perk for Sam McCamus here, not having the pressures of cameras on you all over the battle box. Their last win was going all the way back to January 2022 at Miami Maker Faire. It's been a tough run for Ram Robotics the past year. They could use this action. Another robot that could use this action, another live event regular, Slammo. I think Craig Danby is definitely interested in showing up at these things, given that he did leave the comment saying, hey, I think this is more than just a July 5th through 9th thing. He's probably inquired about it. I would not be surprised if we see Slammo appear at some of these Proving Ground events. Maybe even some of his other wild robots like Apex showing up for them as well. Slammo is going to be very active in 2023 from Battlebots to Extreme Robots to Proving Grounds. Shame they weren't at RoboGames due to some family issues, but still a lot to be excited about with Team Danby and Slammo. We know that they're also going to be fighting Double Tap on later on this week on the Battlebots episode, so maybe they can get out of the negatives in the TCC Overall Rankings. Could also get out of the negatives with a good performance at Proving Grounds. Talking about a third robot here. Robot which we actually just saw pick up a victory last week at Battlebots. Shred It Bro. I mean, this robot, it's 2-2. May make the playoffs as a bottom seed. It's borderline for 2023. Got a big win versus Overhaul. And, maybe if we can pick up some more big, destructive, reliable wins, we can see this robot become a lock again in the summer for, another Battlebots season. Another case, just like Gruff, where coming all the way from the East Coast is a little bit tricky, but I feel like that kind of sacrifice would definitely be worth making for Team Shred It Bro here. We also have Horizon, another robot I would have to suggest, just like Shred It Bro, did get a win this year, so not the worst season. I mean, I would actually like to guess that Horizon's probably safe for another season because it did pick up that win against Shatter. It's such a unique design. It's such a fun-loving team. The colors are amazing. But any chance they could use to fine-tune the design, kind of like what we saw at Robotica 2022 for Horizon, would be very good for Horizon because, there's so many moving parts on a robot like this. You have the big weapon frame. You have the small robot. You got the 2 big blades. They got a bunch of attachments which we're going to be talking about later on during this episode of Robot Combat Tonight. They might be able to use, just that little perk, that little bit of a shoving boost to make that robot better at Proving Ground. But finally, perhaps the team that may need this more than anybody, they're in California. They're not too far away. They were supposed to be at RoboGames, and they weren't. They're 0-4 as of this week. Glitch, UC Berkeley, Cal Berkeley. These guys should be good. These guys, this is a robot that started off its career 7-0. We'll talk about it later in the episode. 4-fight losing streak now. These guys need to tear apart some young, inexperienced robots and show the Battlebots, hey, we are still the Glitch from 2021. Just like Horizon, maybe Shred It Bro, I don't think Glitch is out for the next season. But, because of course, UC Berkeley's a huge college. The team's great. This team has a lot of upside for their future in robot combat, in my opinion. But Glitch doesn't work. at all. And this team seriously needs more time in the arena, and they really need more time in the pits, to be brutally honest. They need more time working on servicing this robot, seeing what breaks, what doesn't break. Because this event would only be 2 months before BattleBots. It's not like taking that year off every season just while the sport evolves without you. Here you go. You got a big-time event right here. Fight 2 or 3 times. Prove to Greg Munson and Trey Roski that you indeed are a solid robot. And that's really what I have right now in terms of robots I would like to see at the Battlebots Proving Ground competition. Of course, we already have Gigabyte confirmed. Roundhouse Shadow confirmed. But like I brought up, machines from RoboGames, Swamp Thing, Hexadecimator, Emperor, some other machines, cluster bots like the Twins, new robots like Subatomic, Disarray, Pinch Point, maybe some veterans like Gruff, Slammo, Shredder Bro, Horizon, or Glitch. That's all the robots we just listed off. Ran over them one more time right there. And, you know, with all these events being so scattered, I don't expect Battlebots, or I should say likely scattered. Maybe everything is from July 5th to 9th, and maybe we will see footage, but honestly, I don't expect Battlebots to put out much footage of these events outside of maybe, you know, some highlight fights on YouTube, maybe. So hopefully the vloggers, Instagrammers, and fight recappers will hopefully be out in full force of these events, because given that these are 250-pound full combat tryout fights, they will be counted towards TCC's overall rankings whenever results do come in. That's going to be exciting because that means there's going to be a little bit more fluctuation in the rankings this year than there was last year. Speaking of the rankings, we're going to be ending this episode talking about the TCC overall rankings. Some big shifts in the top 10. But now, that's all we have to talk about in terms of Battlebots Live, Las Vegas, Destruct A Thon, Proving Ground style developments. As I mentioned, I would definitely keep an eye out for a Battlebots TCC news video. Once we get more details, I'll probably will talk to RDC and Battlebots maybe to try to pull out more deets from those guys. I want to figure out some stuff so I can bring it to y'all, the TCC people. But now let's get to Battlebots World Championship 7, the 2022 World Championship. It is week 14 of 15 for the regular season. We got one more week to go after this one. And this was a very interesting week. Not the best week on paper, but we definitely had a lot of styles matches of sorts. We had Omni Wheel versus Omni Wheel. We had Stealth Fighter Design versus Stealth Fighter Design. But in the opener here, it was Big Wheel versus Big Wheel. Huge versus Star Child. But of course, we can't jump into Star Child without bringing up something that I honestly forgot to bring up at the top of the episode. As always with the Combot Collective, we are sponsored by RobotsRuinMyLife.com. They are the merchandise provider for numerous robot combat teams on the East Coast, teams that you see on Battlebots and NHRL. We're talking about robots such as Shredder Bro, Star Child, Ripperoni, Marathon, Wake and Bake, the original 3-pound versions of Shredder Bro and Star Child, among many others. All those kinds of robots merchandise will be found on RobotsRuinMyLife.com. Amazing things from shirts, buttons, pins, hats, bags. They got the Ripperoni pizza boxes, of course. Ripperoni's a hot topic, a hot commodity right now. But they also have their own Robots Ruin My Life line logo merch, from t-shirts to bags to pins of that. So be sure to check out RobotsRuinMyLife.com for some amazing Battlebots, NHRL, and Robot Combat merchandise. They're the sponsor for the Combot Collective, and the link will be in the description below if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're watching this live, just look it up real quick. We should actually have it in the promotion area, Friends of TCC, on the Discord server. But yes, link will be in the description below if you're watching this on YouTube. Talking about one robot on that website, Star Child. Huge versus Star Child. This is the fight that people have been wanting to see since the 250-pound Star Child hit the scene. But quite frankly, I mentioned it a few times on TCC. Not a fight that I've personally been too excited by. It just seems like an awkward clash of styles for me. Opposite records here as well. Huge, of course, 3-0, looking to become the second 4-0 robot in the field, while Star Child just wants a win as a heavyweight, sitting at 0-3. Talking about setups here, Huge would bring out the Tegris wheels and the classic S blade. They knew them wheels might be taking some punishment due to just how powerful that twacking weapon on Star Child seems to be. But Star Child, meanwhile, also kind of bolstering up the chunkiness here. The wheels are the same. Their wheels were always Tegris, but they also have a thicker HDPE weapon stopper, so that blade isn't hitting the arena floor so much. I guess they knew that Huge was going to be striking it quite a bit during this fight. They certainly wouldn't be wrong. This fight was a bit more exciting than I originally anticipated, but still certainly a one-sided beating, unfortunately. Tony D'Ambrosio did warn me that this fight might get a little bit ugly. It was Huge offense all the way from point A to point B. One strike from Starchild at the very start of the fight, but after that, it was all brutality for Huge. And sad thing here, that weapon on Starchild just not happening during the regular season. This was another fight where that weapon would stop around the 30-second mark. Only one solid fight before the punishment was just too much. Not much to talk about here. It was a strong fight for Jonathan Schultz. He is happy. He is confident. Huge wins a strong judge's decision. They are our second robot to move to 4-0. This is the first time after 5 attempts that Huge has finished his regular season undefeated. It will continue to never miss the playoffs in its career, at least up to this point. Maybe Huge is finally a top 10 seed. We've seen them, be everywhere from the early 10s to the low 20s in the past few seasons. Maybe this is the finally the time they can get into that single-digit territory. I would love to see it for the sake of Huge. But talking about Starchild here, meanwhile, 0-4, very unfortunate. Still a lot of love for this robot, of course, being Omega Team, Robots Ruin My Life. My buddy Tony's there. But what we kind of saw this with Starfather. Maybe this design just doesn't translate to higher and bigger classes. Of course, Starchild, the 3-pounder, former NHRL finalist. Starfather, the 30-pound version, has had some decent events. Went well at Motorama 2022, but outside of that has just sort of been a field filler at most of the events of the 10s. 250-pound Starchild, sadly, even worse. 0-4. Didn't get knocked out. That's fortunate, but it certainly got beaten to a pulp by a few robots. Gigabyte made them look like a pair of flat tires. Huge left them looking like a broken hourglass. The robot's a tank. The concept's amazing. I wish them the best of luck at Champions and maybe Proving Grounds. There's another robot I would love to see at Proving Grounds, them and Ripperoni. I mean, Greg Munson has even gone on record to say, hey, I would love to see Ripperoni at Proving Grounds or whatever qualifier event we may do at the time. Maybe he's calling his shot. Maybe he's begging for him to show up, but not really much to talk about here with the fight. Big question real quick. Our only big question for this episode. What changes does Starchild need to make for a better future? I mean, I think they'll be back next year. I think the robot is fun enough, unique enough to be back next year, though. Maybe we should wait until the performance at Champions to say something like that. The robot, like I mentioned, has had some trouble adapting from class to class. Good in 3 pounds, in 30 pounds, not really good at all in 250 pounds so far. Should the team wait it out? Maybe the verdict's too early right here. We've heard it from numerous people this season that Starchild is built to take on compact spinners like Rotator and Minotaur, maybe even a machine like Riptide. This is not what this robot was designed to fight. These crazy designs like Mammoth and Huge and Gigabyte. But you got to be ready for everything in robot combat. You can't be situational because you're going to have bad seasons like this, unfortunately. Personally, I would try to maybe make the weapon longer, lighter tail, maybe made out of like a cheaper material. I mean, I'm not trying to be a backseat builder here by any means, so try to sound a little layman's with my wording. But for a big issue I had with Starchild this year was that it seems like the range was just awful. They didn't have the ability to land thwack like they really wanted to. I think they just need a lighter weapon, a lighter tail, so maybe they won't be delivering as big of impacts this season, though they really weren't delivering impacts at all this season to begin with. Maybe that's what they need, just a lighter weapon that they can just sort of swing over a little bit easier just to go whoop-ah with. But that's about as caveman as I'm going to get. I love Starchild. They're a sponsor of the show. They're a supporter of the show. It's an awesome robot. Brandon Zielinski, of course. I mean, hey, we got your robot's wheel right here. We love us some P1 here at the Combot Collective. I want to see the best for this robot. Like I mentioned, I wouldn't mind seeing them at Proving Grounds. I just want to see this machine get better and perform because Ripperoni's done so good. I wanted this to be a double playoff performance for Omega Team this season, but at 0-4, you couldn't be further away from the playoffs. They're in the bottom of the TCC Overall Rankings. It's just sad, but as we mentioned, we now go from big wheels to strafing wheels. Shatter versus Ominous. Strafe on strafe. Fight fans have been gushing for this fight since early 2020. Of course, these robots confirmed for Battlebots 2020 pre-COVID. Didn't happen. Ominous was supposed to be at Battlebots 2021. Didn't happen due to visas. We finally get it here, but with more stakes than we ever initially expected. Ominous is 1-2, Shatter 0-3 with no appeal left. If either of these robots wanted even a shot at the top 32, they would have had to win this fight. And I mean, you could tell how serious these teams were. No big wedges on either robot. The glitz and glam on Shatter was ditched. There was no sparkly ablative armor, no wedgelets, just two chunky forks, all black titanium and the old rusty axe. Ominous, meanwhile, like I mentioned, no wedgelets here. Maybe slightly different armor. We also have some HDPE anti-hammer armor up top on Ominous. That's always a smart move. So, you know, both these robots pretty much bringing what they advertise. Big hammer strafing wheels, big vert strafing wheels. And, you know, some fights, like we talked about, Sawblaze versus Hydra, we see two robots go after one another with maybe a bit too much ground game. Perhaps too little ground game on either end with this fight here. Neither robot found much purchase with their weapon or drive as the fight got deeper and deeper. Shatter would be very aggressive, but still quite wild with that weapon. 8 for 20 on hammer strikes, not even 500. Not including, of course, the wild strikes they were swinging around towards the final minute of the fight just to get drive working. Because according to Reddit, apparently there were some issues with drive this season due to apparently the hammer power and Shatter being turned up this season. They just weren't able to get contact on the floor. There was something involving the drive pins with the strafing wheels. A lot of things were causing Shatter some serious woes, and we definitely saw that in the final minute. But I mean, hey, they still managed to win via judge's decision here. Ominous, probably not going to make the playoffs, but they took, Shatter, probably not going to make the playoffs, but they took Ominous with them at least. Brought them to the abyss, kind of like what Big Dill did the free shipping a couple weeks back. I mean, Ominous, they really could use. We talked about their stream mech being bad. Their configuration game also just not leaving much to be desired here. They could really use some wedgelets for future events. They need a better ground game, and they need some better drive. Ominous lost left front drive in less than 25 seconds into the fight. They pretty much were literally moving on the back foot for a remainder of the fight after that point because that was the only way they could drive straight. I mean, hey, that's your upside, having 3 wheels instead of 2, but, you know, you're going to be driving at some wonky angles. Really weren't able to land some strikes. You know, before this fight, Chris Rose said Ominous was likely out of the playoff push already. I certainly disagreed with that, but after this fight, hard not to disagree. Certainly agree with it now. I think, hate to say it, you know, I really wanted to see the Dutchman make the playoffs. I feel like reality got screwed out of a playoff spot in 2018. Both these robots finished 1-3. I eagerly await the Golden Bolt brackets because I want to see more from these robots. Hopefully we can see some more from Ominous just in general at Extreme Robots, not just at Battlebots. And they seem to do better there. They certainly need to do better right now because their TCC ranking pretty damn low, I gotta say. I hate to say it, but that's where we sit. 2 robots at 1-3. Our strafing superstars, Glitch, Ominous, and Shatter, all not really doing too well this season. But from now, 2 strafing robots. Let's go to 2 wild horizontal spinners, 2 newcomer horizontal spinners at that. 2 robots which finished 0-2 in the first half of the regular season before getting a big upset in round 3 from Team Overboard Triton, from Team Horizon 2 California. Actually, I'm sorry, 1 California robot, 1 Las Vegas robot. Desperately needed to pick up a win here. Like I mentioned, 1-2. Looked like they were out of the playoff push early on. But hey, now they were able to muster up one more shot to make the 32. And Triton is finally bringing out the Compass Rose for regular season round 4. We saw the Anchor Blade in the last 3 fights. This was something they've also been talking about bringing along. A bit more of a traditional last right style, chunky, non-asymmetrical blade. Horizon, meanwhile, looking mostly the same, but much similar to Ominous. They added some HDPE plastic armor to give it a better show against a very destructive robot like Triton. Put it over the, I believe, the weapon modules on the ends of the big weapon frame for Horizon, so maybe those blades can survive just a little bit longer, but really didn't matter here. Early issues in both weapon and drive for Triton, barely a movement on its left side at all for the first half of the fight, and that weapon would just not spin up at all. There would be instances where it would get spun up, it was spinning up, and then it just would stop. And then it would spin up, and then it would stop. And during all this, Horizon seemed to be working fine, but they were just not able to capitalize on Triton's troubles early on. And around the second half of the fight, we'd start seeing that Triton weapon be a bit more consistent, stayed spinning up to full speed. We started hearing that signature whirr that Triton seems to be putting out with its weapon power. And it was with the second half of the fight, Triton spun up to full speed. It was pretty much all over for the abstract robot. Big time strike, big time strike, big time strike. Small bits and pieces, UHMW, chunks of the blade, chunks of the weapon module going everywhere. And then it was a knockout. Right then and there, Triton, 2-2. Team seemed incredibly emotional about it. They were super excited, and I'm super excited for them. I think they're snuck into the playoffs at 2-2. I think they put on is impressive enough of a show. They managed to make one of their KOs a double KO, just a decision, even though it was a little bit by luck. Give him a shot, man. Kenny Florian said that he believes Triton's already out of contention, but I wouldn't count him out yet. The 32 needs some good horizontal spinners, and like I mentioned, this is a fun one. Horizon, though, meanwhile, at 1-3. It's done, but like I said at Proving Grounds, when we talked about that, I think they'll be back next season. They might be able to have some fun, turn some heads at champions. We'll have to wait and see. Midway major time, though, and it's the Killer Bees, two robots which, after earlier fights this season, may have proven that they're at the top of their own class, with Beta taking out Shatter, Bloodsport taking out Rotator. So, hey, this is the top horizontal spinner, top hammer, arguably. Who's going to come out on top? Bloodsport will enter this fight with their Ferris wheel blade, something which is designed to be an anti-hammer setup. And we also see the Gigabyte-style Shremek pole, another smart move by BNS Robotics here, knowing that they would likely be slammed around the arena, flipped over, something they certainly would be taking on. Also have 4 wedgelets up front, but they really wouldn't matter much. Beta, meanwhile, for the second straight fight, brings back the Thor-style hammer, along with a chunky front plow, even bigger than their usual plow we see in the team photos. Something definitely designed for some big fuck-off horizontal spinners like Bloodsport. And this was a great fight, probably my fight of the episode. Great driving and weapon work from both ends, BNS Robotics and Team Hertz. Bloodsport's weapon never died after vicious, repeated, brutal slams from Beta, and Beta's hammer survived a plethora of those close Ferris wheel impacts from Bloodsport. The team knew that, any hard strike to that hammer, and especially any hard strike to that back of the robot, it would be curtains for Beta this fight, especially if it happened in the first half of the matchup. It just could not happen. We could not have that Ferris wheel blade touch the back half of Beta, and we certainly did not. Fantastic driving by both John Reed and Jason Marston here, as this would be a Beta victory by judge's decision. This was very much a contentious fight for fans all around the world of Robot Combat. A lot of fans had Beta, a lot of fans had Bloodsport, but the Britbot comes off on top here. A much better showing for Beta here against the horizontal spinner than their last fight against the horizontal spinner, that very controversial 2020 fight against Rotator. Beta would go 11 for 14 on weapon strikes, much better than what Shatter did, 8 for 20. With the highlight one being two strikes which happened during the final 45 seconds of the fight. Beta had Bloodsport pinned right up to the arena wall, and whomp, 2 strikes, and that weapon housing was shattered on Bloodsport. Big time impacts there was the indelible image left in the judge's mind, which gave Beta the judge's victory here. Beta now 3-1 and a likely top 16 seed. Bloodsport, meanwhile, will likely make the playoffs, but probably won't be a top half seed. I hate to say it, but a 2-2. We have so many solid 3-1 robots, some really solid 4-0 robots. I just don't know if Bloodsport has a spot in the rankings right there. The weapon's been reliable. The robot's been reliable. Outside of that freak loss against Copperhead where they just got maimed, this is still a good performance here for them. The weapon was handled great. The robot drove fine. The reliability was fine. They got some solid mid-power strikes at the front of Beta, which didn't cause them so much recoil. But this was all about the slams, the rams, and the hammer strikes here for John Reed and Beta. As he's been saying, every single victory, Beta is back. And hey, we got the old kilohertz shell right here, so I'm pretty stoked about it. Let's move on to our 5th fight. We're going briskly along here on Robot Combat tonight. It is a creature-on-creature showdown, Mammoth versus Kraken. You know, Mammoth fell to a croc a couple weeks back. How does it do against a sea creature? Pretty well, apparently. Gotta say, this was an impressive one by Mammoth, and they needed it because Team Mammoth has had a tough year so far. I mean, they had that hard loss against Death Roll, like I just mentioned. They had a very frustrating loss against Valkyrie. Maybe they should have won that fight if things just went slightly better for them. They needed a W here if they wanted to get into the top 32. And as a Hail Mary play, the team decided to switch out their drive modules for the ones Hypershock used for this final fight. They were looking for much better mobility here. Really didn't bring them that, but maybe it did help them with their reliability because Mammoth did not lose Mammoth did not lose drive power until the final 30 seconds of the fight. But not to get too ahead of ourselves, Kraken, meanwhile, in hopes to bounce back from a winless season last year, has done everything to change the robot this year. It's literally a brand new Kraken. And for all that effort, they stare down another winless year if they lose to Mammoth here. And Kraken as well, just like Mammoth, did some crazy shifts to hopefully get themselves a win for the regular season. You know, they switched out the radio receiver, which can be a bit of a gamble. We saw during regular season week 3, Rotator switched out their radio receiver, and it bit them in the ass big time. Looked like it helped them a little bit here. Both these robots were super aggressive. It was like a boxing match for the first minute. Kraken bringing in the jaws, Mammoth bringing in the tusks, just going weapon to weapon. Great aggression by both robots, but Kraken started falling a little bit before Mammoth did. We started seeing that Kraken teeth blade, you know, just going on, off. Some drive issues with Kraken, like we saw during the Lucky fight. Things were getting pretty bad pretty quick for Kraken, and these troubles let Mammoth bully Kraken to the driver's side corner where the two robots would spend the final minute of the fight. Mammoth laid in numerous uppercuts, just trying to get that perfect hook on the body of Kraken to yeet it forward, maybe for an out of the arena, but we were not so lucky here. Kraken just took rock after rocking strike from the tusk lifter, that rotary lifter of Mammoth. Got flipped over a couple times. Kraken did self-right. Mammoth would lose half of its drive in the last 30 seconds, like I mentioned, but it would be a judge's decision victory here for Mammoth. It finishes its year off at 2-2. Kraken 0-4. Ricky Williams was so emotional, so excited. He was thanking everyone from the fans to his own team to Mammoth to, of course, people in the pits like Team Hypershock who lended him those drive modules for this fight. All those factors went into a big-time victory for Mammoth, one of the biggest victories of its career right here. Keeps them relevant. They missed the playoffs last year after what was a very, very exciting 2020 season for them. They're trying to capture that 2020 magic. The team said that they know they're probably going to be a bottom seed, but they know if they get a chance against a robot like Copperhead in 2020, maybe they can pull off a crazy upset, make it to the top 16, maybe even the final 8 for Mammoth. They could really use it after going 1-5 last year at Battlebots. It was so disappointing. We're now down to 2 fights, though. We're almost to our main event, to our TCC Overall Rankings, but first, the struggling stealth bombers collide. Glitch versus Valkyrie. Both Glitch and Valkyrie came into 2022 with some huge stories, and they just have not lived up to the hype. Valkyrie, with their brand new captain, new look team, Lucy Dew now at the helm, sits at 1-2. Their only victory being the aforementioned awkward one against Mammoth. And Glitch, oh, we've already talked about Glitch a little bit this episode. After starting its career off 7-0, now finds itself at a 4-fight losing streak. A loss here, and they've damn near almost matched their 7-fight winning streak with a 7-fight losing streak. Only 2 more away from that, but let's not get too ahead of ourselves here, as I always say. We saw some pictures leading into this fight on the Battlebots subreddit. Pictures that showed us that while Glitch still remained mostly the same, all weapons, no wedgelets, Valkyrie would be shockingly bringing out the jousting weapon, something which did not help them at all during the Banshee fight for this matchup against Glitch, and they would also be bringing out their weapon, Sweet Caroline, one of the original Valkyrie blades. It is their bow tie blade, flat end, so they can land brutal, ramming, striking strikes, show some aggressive and not... Sorry, I'm getting stuffy there. Show some aggression and just not Glitch all over the arena. And this fight, geez, it was almost over within seconds. One hit from Valkyrie and Glitch was high-centered on the kill saws. And then, much to Kenny Florian's chagrin, and I mean, geez, I don't think I've seen Kenny Florian get this frustrated during a Battlebots fight before. I love how passionate they're getting with fights, though, now. I gotta say, from Saw Blaze versus Scorpius to this fight here, Chris Rose and Kenny Florian, they're taking this shit seriously now. I absolutely love it. But yeah, Valkyrie played the first half of this fight super conservatively. They let Glitch recover on multiple occasions. They really did nothing but nibble away at the sides and the rear of Glitch. And the fans were frustrated. Kenny Florian was frustrated. I'm sure the team was frustrated. But, you know, after inevitably losing that jousting wedgelet blade once again, likely to their own weapon once again, Team Valkyrie, Team Questionable Designs finally decided to just go full send. And boy, one of the biggest hits this episode. The first weapon-on-weapon strike would almost kill Glitch. Definitely killed the weapon. Valkyrie's blade survived this one. It certainly didn't survive the Malice fight. Looks like they tightened it a little bit better this time because Glitch's weapon was the one suffering. It got shattered into 3 different pieces. One of the pieces was just gone, gaping. I don't know where it went. The other 2 parts was shattered. You could just see the frame of the egg beater weapon just sitting in the axle position. Couldn't spin. Was ready to just get taken apart, disassembled like Legos. Valkyrie absolutely rocked it with its blade. And somehow Glitch survived this. It sat still for a little bit, cheated death by moving around right before the ref started counting it. And it makes it to the judges miraculously here. But even though Glitch did survive the full 3 minutes, this one was open and shut. Valkyrie wins a strong unanimous judges decision, but I mean, it could have been a knockout with more aggressions. Kenny Florian was certainly right there. I would have liked to see a little bit more from Valkyrie, especially, you know, being a 1-2 robot that needed a big win here if it wants to make it into the top 32. But that being said, I do think Valkyrie will just barely eke into the postseason with this performance, but I cannot say so much for Glitch. Like I mentioned here, 7 straight wins has now almost been matched 1-1. 5 straight losses for Glitch. Could be 6 after Champions. Could be 7 after Vengeance in Vegas if they decide to compete here. Who knows what's going to happen. These guys need to show up at Proving Ground, man. They were not at Robo Games. They needed to be at Robo Games. They need more time in the pits. I already mentioned it once this episode, so I won't dwell on it. But, man, that was disappointing for Glitch, but perhaps not as disappointing as our main event. Black Dragon versus Riptide, Brazil versus USA, Egg Beater versus Egg Beater. The controversial knockout artist, Riptide, is at 3-0 with 3 knockout victories. Black Dragon, meanwhile, 2-1, but has a record, or held a record of 24 straight fights without being knocked out. They wanted to tie Bite Force's record of 25, but they needed to just simply survive this matchup against Riptide if they wanted to make history. You could hear a pin drop in my house after this fight, and I'm sure that went for a lot of family homes after this matchup. Talk about some configurations here. Black Dragon used 2 short wedgelets, bringing out their heaviest and farthest reaching Egg Beater disc for this fight. They had 11 inches of reach. First time they used this weapon all event this season. But unfortunately, even with the 11 inches of reach, they were still 2 inches short of what Riptide brought with their signature Egg Beater weapon. Riptide was definitely looking for the ground game here with 4 long forks up the front of Riptide here to go along with that vile Egg Beater. And ground game certainly played the factor here, I'd have to say. I mean, obviously, we just talked about it. Short wedges for Black Dragon, long wedges for Riptide. What happens? Well, we had a result about 4 seconds into the fight. That's what happened here. A lot of us were fearing this result, and we certainly got it. I mean, if it wasn't for the toaster blockers, which were added last season, we would be looking at a lot more out of the arenas this season. We certainly would have saw one here in seconds. We would have seen this robot get sent out of the arena twice. In fact, Riptide just delivered a handful of vicious strikes to Black Dragon. Didn't even let them get out of the corner of the arena. And within a minute, Riptide shatters history. Black Dragon's non-KO streak ends at 24. One away. Just one away from making history. I mean, Team Uriah could have gotten a victory in just surviving. Just one to go against arguably the most disliked robot in the field. It's so unfortunate. It's heartbreaking. It's a story like Alex Rodriguez holding up the World Series trophy in 2009. Couldn't happen to a better team, huh? It sucks. Riptide, meanwhile, playoff bound, 4-0, the only robot to get KO. You can hate the robot, you can love it, but you can't deny it's one of the best machines in the world, in my opinion. One of the 5 best heavyweights in the world. Number 3 on the TCC Overall Rankings, which we'll get to here in just a second. Black Dragon, meanwhile, still a historic robot. Still sits at number 2 for the record. They're just going to have to break the record next time over the next few BattleBots seasons, I guess. They're still playoff bound. I hope we can see them go far. I hope we can see them maybe get some revenge on Riptide later on in the bracket, maybe at Champions, if that's how they end up meeting. I want to see these robots run it back, though. It's been a great week for the most part for Team Uriah. I mean, Federal MT, RoboGames Lightweight Champion, General, a bit more disappointing. 0-2 at RoboGames. This was super disappointing for Team Warrior. Super sad for them. But, hey, that's the way Robot Combat go. But there we go. 7 fights up, 7 fights down, like we always say here at the Combot Collective. Before we get you guys going, we didn't do a TCC Overall Rankings update last week because we were going so long on time. So we got one this week, and this is going to be our first look at the updated rankings since RoboGames had finished. We've also had 2 more episodes of BattleBots since this has happened. And let's start with our very bottom of the group here, our bottom feeder. Number 77 out of 77. They almost came out of the bottom feeder position after the loss with Starchild, but went right back there with the loss to Valkyrie. It's Glitch, negative 30 points. They are 4 points behind number 76, Kraken, another robot which lost today at negative 26. Maybe we can see that Glitch Kraken rematch during Champions. Battle of the bottom feeders, 2 very unique designs which just have not been able to get it going this year. I feel for them. We talked about Omnis as well, another loser this episode. They entered Battlebots 2022 World Championship 7 as the number 13 overall ranked robot at the Combot Collective. But after some serious trouble against these American foes, this robot now sits at number 68, sitting in the negatives, well in the negatives in fact. I really hope the Dutchmen do show up at Extreme Robots and knock that tally up just a little bit, at least get themselves into the positive numbers, even if it just be 0 points, 2 points, do something. Here's a robot that did win today, though. We talked about some of our losers here. Here's a winner. Shatter now finds itself at number 59, just 1 under its own teammate Emulsifier at number 58. Both these robots hold negative 14 points and likely will miss the Battlebots playoffs. Emulsifier may have an outside chance just because it's put on some wonderful fights this season. We'll have to see how it goes for Emulsifier. Shatter, though, likely out of the playoff push. And here's 2 other robots which have disappointed this year. We got Big Dill and Whiplash, 2 robots which really could have used an elite RoboGames performance to get them out of the doldrums. We thought that maybe we were going to see that with Whiplash making a surprise appearance at RoboGames under the name Whomper, immediately becoming a championship contender. We saw Big Dill pick up some decent wins against King Crab and free shipping at Battlebots. But then they immediately lost a bunch after that, knockouts to the likes of Manta. Bit unfortunate there, so they start off at the top at RoboGames, finish it off at the bottom. Whiplash is now ranked number 55. Big Dill back to the very bottom at number 73. You hate to see it, but hey, that's just where they sit. Maybe Champions can help those 2 robots out because they certainly blew a big chance to go up the rankings at RoboGames. And now, speaking of RoboGames, one more robot to mention here from that event, HexeD, Hexadecimator. We love it so much. It was in the TCC top 10 for a day during their crazy run when they were sitting at 3-0 on the overall rankings with 24 points. But now they sit at 22, just 2 spots under the elite flipper Eruption with what I believe is, I don't know, let me double check the rankings here, like 10, 16 points, maybe a little bit less than that. There are only 2 spots under Eruption, though. HexeD 22, Eruption 20. I doubt we'll see any more from HexeD this year unless they do appear at Proving Grounds. I would love to see that. I believe the team is based in Washington, so maybe it won't be too hard. But we are certainly going to see more from Eruption. In fact, we're going to finally see more from them next month. Super excited about that. But now let's get to our TCC top 10, as we always do here. Honorable mentions, we got 2 robots which missed the top 10 by just 1 or 2 points. At number 12 is Sawblaze. It is finally out of the top 10 overall rankings after that tough loss to Hydra. Just too many other robots moving up the ranks for it to stay in there after not doing anything this week. We also have Terratops, a robot which sat in the lower part of the top 10 at first, but after the loss to Manta, fell right back out of it. 17 points. It can make the top 10 maybe if we see it at Champions, but right now, just misses the cut by 1 point. Very disappointing, but hey, what are you going to do? Terratops is a very solid robot. They'd probably be very firmly in the top 10 right now if they were a regular season competitor. Will be next season, though. I am so stoked for the arms race between Manta and Terratops for Rookie of the Year next year. It's going to be fun. But now let's get to our TCC top 10 ranked robots in the heavyweight class. As of today, April 21st, Texas Independence Day. And number 10, this robot shared a spot with Black Dragon in the number 10 position during our first Robot Combat Tonight episode. It's Ripperoni, who of course knocked Copperhead out of the TCC 10 last week to guarantee itself a top 10 spot. It doesn't have to share this time. This robot is impressive, and it keeps being impressive this year. It may very well just not lose this spot at all. Maybe even find themselves in the top 5 of the rankings before this year is over. Didn't even need RoboGames to get there. One robot that did need RoboGames to get there, though, is Malice, sitting with 20 points. After that performance as Right Rabbit at RoboGames, I'm still shocked it isn't higher. It was super destructive against the likes of Hexadecimator, Manta, Original Sin, the defending RoboGames champion at the time. May end up being a top 5 robot alongside Ripperoni before the year ends, but that only happens if weapon issues stay away. We've seen Malice have great weaponry reliability at Destruct A Thon. We've seen Malice have great weaponry reliability at RoboGames. We saw it have great reliability in the recent fight versus Gruff. Playoffs is a whole different picture, though. At 3-1, they're going to get a tough opponent, most likely. We'll see how it goes for Bunny at number 9. Now we get to the 22-point logjam that's been plaguing the top 10 for a couple of weeks now. It's getting a little bit better. Only 2 robots with 22 points now, and the first of which being number 8, Witch Doctor. Of course, it has not fought since we began Robot Combat Tonight, but that changes next week. Number 7, Mad Catter, also with 22 points. It has gone from, the 25 to 35 window after the loss to Lockjaw. But then it placed second at RoboGames, had a very, very good performance there. Got some big wins against the likes of Lucky and I believe Original Sin. Yeah, not Original Sin. My apologies. Raging Scotsman. Easy to get those two mixed up. They sit at 22 points. 2-2 entering the playoffs. They're likely going to take on a big challenge in the round 1 of the playoffs. Can Mad Catter finally break out of the round of 32? They fell to Black Dragon in 2021. They fell to Tombstone in 2020. We'll see what happens in 2022. Number 5 is Quantum. Number 4 is Huge. Both of these robots sit with 28 points. They are our first 2 undefeated robots of the regular season at Battlebots. They managed 2 knockout wins, 2 judges decision wins each, so they can do a little bit of both. You got to get a man that can do both. You can knock a robot out. They can take them a distance. The reliability was great for both these robots. Shoot, man. I would love to see Quantum versus Huge in the playoffs. I don't think it would be the most exciting fight, but it would be a very interesting clash of styles. Maybe Quantum would bust out in a configuration of sorts. Maybe something fun like that. Would be very interesting to see. But now we get to our top 3 right here, and we already talked about it during our main event discussion. Our number 3 robot, the third robot to make itself undefeated after 4 straight KOs. So add it on. 8 points. 16 points, 24 points, 32 points. Number 3 is Riptide from Teak Break 32. It is now known as the Streak Killer. Killed Black Dragon's streak. It is the sole machine so far to finish the season with these 4 KOs. I think Minotaur may be able to do that if it knocks out Witch Doctor next week. Probably the only robot right now which has a chance to usurp Riptide as the number 1 seed whenever whoever wins between Minotaur and Witch Doctor. I'd be shocked, though, if Riptide is anywhere lower than 4th seed. Really would be. It's a solid robot, as much as I hate to say it. They sit at number 3 on the TCC Overall Rankings. But hey, if Battlebots wants to replace it with a four-wheel drive, C-themed vertical spinner next year, we have Manta from the United States. Not the British Manta, our RoboGames winner from Team Tanto Manta. And funny enough, at number 2, the American Manta is 40 spots above the British Manta right now on our TCC overall rankings. Like I mentioned, won RoboGames with 5 straight knockout victories. They would have a beautiful even 40 points, but Hexy D had to play spoiler. They had to flip Manta over. They had to knock it out and set it ablaze. Sucks for Team Tanto, but I think they'll live with that RoboGames gold medal. They stood at number 2, but still, you know, it's funny. When I mentioned it a week before last, I thought it was just going to be a fun thing to celebrate for 1 week, but we are now going on 2 weeks strong with this robot at number 1. Lucky, the Canadian Crusader, has 42 points. 4 more than Manta. Consistency and activity is key here for TKO Robotics. Matt Olson, Mark Demers. Lucky made a deep run at RoboGames and is now primed for a deep run at Battlebots this year. They're still already 3-0 at Battlebots right now. They got one more regular season fight against Combot, which is going to be a tough one. And this is going to be one for all of us to watch out for next week. It's going to be the very first fight of the Battlebots episode, Combot versus Lucky. And if Lucky loses that by knockout or even by judge's decision, it's going to fall to number 2 on the TCC overall rankings, and Manta is going to become our number 1. So that's going to be something to watch out for right there. Hopefully we can see Lucky pull up the upset against Combot. I think Combot will still make it in at 2-2. I think Lucky makes it in at 3-1 as well, but like I mentioned, I just want to see Lucky pull off something crazy here. It's going to be Canada versus UK, a little bit of Commonwealth carnage, and I am super stoked. But hey, that's what we got for Robot Combat tonight today. Let's run over our TCC top 10 one more time here. Number 10, Ripperoni. Number 9, Malice. Number 8, Witch Doctor. Number 7, Mad Catter. Number 6, Minotaur. Number 5, Quantum. Number 4, Huge. Number 4 and 5 both having 28 points. Pretty much tied for 4th. Number 3, Riptide. Number 2, from Team Tanto in the USA, our RoboGames winner, Manta. And number 1, still Lucky with 42 points. 4 more points than our number 2 robot, Manta. Super happy for TKO Robotics. But hey, there we go. That's all we have to discuss here on Robot Combat tonight this week. We talked about Proving Ground. We talked about robots we want to see and early details that we have. We talked about all 7 fights that happened during the Battlebots Week 14 of the regular season, and now we've gone over the rankings, and you guys are up to date with everything happening in the world of Robot Combat. Check out live events which are going to be happening this week, or on VODs if you're watching this on YouTube. There's going to be some big events happening in UK, America, and Germany. Robot fighting all around the world. You just love to see it, but yes, this is Robot Combat tonight, the Combot Collective. I am your host, as always, Sterling Brown, a.k.a. Sterling TXTG on Instagram. We are sponsored by robotsruinmylife.com. You can find a link to them in the description below. Also in the description below, our Discord server where you can listen to these episodes live. We air them on our Discord server exclusively as a little bit of a perk for all of our members that join the server. Another perk for all of our members that join our Discord server, video upload news goes there first. It goes there before YouTube, before all of our social media pages get it, before the subscribers get it. Check it out there, because when that goes there, you know, video's not even out yet. It's very exciting. A lot of perks if you join the Discord server for TCC. We have a lot of builders there as well. That's in the description below. And of course, we talked about our social media. Videos get posted there, not as soon as they do on the Discord server, but they will get posted there as well. We also have our Robot Combat news, like news about Stewart, news about Disarray, news about Team Shreddit Bro. We've talked about all of that in the past on news posts on our TCC pages. We're going to have a fun static graph about how Beta and Shatter have done with their weapon accuracy within the next couple of days on there. So be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram as well. And of course, you're here on YouTube. If you like what you're seeing here at the Combot Collective with Robot Combat tonight, give us a like, give us a comment, give us your constructive criticism and your thoughts on Week 14 of Battlebots World Championship 7. But that's going to do it for us here at the Combot Collective. Thank you for sticking around all the way from point A to point B for another Robot Combat Tonight episode. Much shorter than last week's episode. Guess that's what happens when you don't have any co-hosts, but that's the way of the road, bud. Hopefully we can get them back next week. We had to shift up scheduling a little bit this time around, but Oh well, next week's going to be a big one. I'm so excited. Witch Doctor versus Minotaur, Double Tap versus Slammo, Tantrum versus Whiplash, Combot versus Lucky. There's so much to be excited about. Plenty of live events around the world. Robo Brawl Down coming up, and NHRL live stream coming up. So much. Stay tuned for it all. This is the Combot Collective. We'll see you next time.
This was the Combot Collective. Find us on Instagram and Discord.